Hiya, Lorree here. Welcome back. So I hope you're all doing well and looking forward to today's video, which as you can see is part 2 to our £10 junk journal challenge, where we're taking it back to the basics and building a junk journal out of pound shop supplies or dollar tree supplies for £10 or less. And I will link part 1 below, where we built the structure of our journal. So now, as you can see, we've got our spine, which is a fabric spine, so it's not as obviously hard as this. One thing I did forget to mention, if you wanted to have like a hard spine, what you could do is, for instance, this paper pad has this backing to it. You could obviously have cut like 2 lengths of this to fit your spine, glued them together and then placed that in and then covered it with your fabric, or just went straight in with your paper. But I like to add fabric or Tyvek to the spine just to strengthen it, because paper obviously will rip over time, whereas Tyvek and fabric won't. So it's always good whenever I'm building a journal, even if it is going to be covered with paper, I will usually add Tyvek, or I will use fabric, or what. Another thing that I like to use is binding tape, which is like a fabric tape, and again it makes it less likely that the spine is going to come away after a while. But obviously you can't get that in the pound shop. But I use a tea towel for mine, and I like the fact that it is a flexible spine. And that way it will grow as I grow rather than it being very stiff. So yeah, so this is where we're at the moment. Let's see if I can get that a little bit off there. And the next part obviously is to cover our journal. So what I got to do that, which I've popped to the side here, is a choice between all of these wallpapers I showed in the first video, or I've got 2 separate tea towels. So what I could do is obviously go in and cover it with, maybe not this one, now that would be a bit of a push, but I could definitely take in and cover the entire journal with this tea towel if I wanted. Obviously there's different tea towels available now compared to what I had then, because I did buy these like 3 or 4 years ago. So I would cover it and it would be completely covered with this, and then we could go in and add other decorations to the front as well. But what I'm going to use is actually one of the wallpapers, because they're prettier and I want to. So like I said, these were completely free. They're just samples that I took when looking at the actual wallpapers in the pound shop. So we're going to choose between these 3, but I think I'm actually going to choose this one because it's my favourite out of the 3. So like I said, you can get these in any shop that sells wallpaper. So like B&Q, Home Base, I think it's called, anything like that. And like I said before, like B&M's, the pound shop that I got this in is actually no longer there. It was in oh, what's it called? It was like a shopping centre in Glasgow, and they don't have a pound shop anymore. So unfortunately that one's not there. But I'm just going to measure out how much of this paper I'm going to need, leaving a good amount all around the journal to fold over the edges. Now obviously you don't have to cover your spine if you don't want to. I could definitely tuck the edges in. So for instance, if I didn't want to cover the spine, I would tuck these edges in and glue it like that, and that way you would still get this as your like page, your cover, without covering the spine. I hope I'm making sense. But yeah, so if you don't want to, if you for instance found a really nice fabric, well, one, you could cover your entire journal in that fabric, but if you only wanted to cover your spine in that fabric, you definitely could. You could either do it first and glue it down the way I have, and then, like I said, instead of covering the entire journal, you would take these papers and you would cover them like so, but when you got to, like say about here, you would fold the paper and it would end like this. And obviously don't do this where I've folded it over on the outside. I've just done that for extra sturdiness because I know I'm covering it, but you obviously don't want to do that if that's not the case. So just making sure I've got it the right way around, like not upside down. I suppose it doesn't really matter at this point anyway, but I want to make sure it's not upside down. So I'm going to grab my glue, and again I'm using the Strong and Clear PVA wood glue, and again I got this in the pound shop, and I don't know if you'll be able to tell on the camera, but obviously this is slightly stiffer than, for instance, the towel. Well, this is the towel I used, but you can tell that this moves freer than this. It is a lot stiffer because of the glue. Obviously you could go over the spine a few times and make it stronger and stronger if you want, but I don't feel the need to do that. So like I said, I've got my little tea bowl here, so I'm just going to fill that up with glue. Put that to the side, and then I'm actually just going to kind of pop it down on this cover there and use my brush. You can obviously use a sponge brush here, which you do get in the pound shop. They look like, they're usually in the, like, the arts and crafty bit for the kids, and they're usually like in a pack with other brushes and stuff like that as well. So you can obviously buy your brushes. You can even get, like, I think paint brushes in the pound shop as well now. They're like one-time use paint brushes. So obviously if you start to wash them, the bristles and stuff come out, but for something like this, if you only wanted to use it the once, it would be fine. So I'm just adding glue all over this side of the journal, and I'm being very generous on the spine so that it's soaking into the fabric, but it's also going to stay on top because obviously it is fabric, so some of the glue will soak into it. So you want to be very generous with your glue. But this is essentially just PVA glue. They didn't have just regular PVA glue, which is a shame because when they do, it's a little larger bottle than this. So I would have got more. So definitely check the craft and stationery area if you're wanting to do this, because usually you'll find a big white bottle of PVA glue, and it is exactly the same stuff, it's just in a different kind of bottle. And like I said, you do actually get more in that bottle. It's like almost twice as much, I think. So I hope everyone is doing well and you're enjoying this little series. I hope you also checked out Lorree's part 1. Again, I will link her video for part 2 down below as well. But I would definitely suggest that you check out her part 1. She's doing her journal mostly from like, what do they call it, second-hand shops. They're called something else in America, like charity shops, but they're called thrift stores. I can't remember, but they're called something else in America. But she's doing hers a soft journal, a soft cover, so it's obviously different to mine. But hers is, she's going to beat me, definitely. I'm no way going to finish mine in the same amount of time it took her to finish hers. She is so fast at making journals, it's crazy. But yeah, definitely check out her part 2, which is linked below, and if you haven't, definitely check out her first part 1 video. And like I said, I hope you're all doing well, and I'd love to hear what you're up to down below. If you're getting ready for Christmas or Hanukkah, or I'm sorry, I don't really know any other season for, like, Halloween. There we go, there's another one. Halloween. What are you up to? Do you celebrate any of these seasons? If not, what do you celebrate, if anything? I'd love to know. Educate me. Like I said, I only really know Christmas and Hanukkah. I can't remember the other ones, unfortunately, off the top of my head, but I would love to know what you celebrate and what that entails. So I'm just pressing this down, and I'm going in with my fingers, like my hands, and the heat of my hands is going to help kind of push everything into place. How beautiful is this wallpaper? I wish I'd got more. It's not like I can go back in and get more now because it's gone. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off a tiny bit more on this side here because there's just a little bit too much. And then I'm going to trim off a little triangle, but still leaving a good amount to cover the corner. There are other ways to do this, and Lorree actually shows a different way to do this if you're not confident in covering the corner with this. It is a brilliant way, and it looks just as beautiful, and it just gives you a different style of your corner as well than, for instance, obviously everybody covers their corners, well, not everybody, but this one, she covers it with this bit first without cutting, and then it gives you a really neat cover as well. This is just how I'm used to doing it, so that's how I do it, but the way she did it was really pretty as well. So I'm going back in with my glue, and at first I'm just going to bring it across the edge and make sure I've got that edge in, and the same with the corner. And then I'm just going to add my glue to the paper, and I'm going to do the two outside sides, so these two sides first. Doesn't matter which sides you start with, whether it be the top and bottom or these two sides, but I definitely would suggest doing the mirror technique where you do mirrored sides at the same time. So I'm just going to make sure that I've got that right up against the edge of the book. I'm just using my nail to push that right in. I'm not using my bone folder or anything right now because I know that not everybody has a bone folder. But if you've got like a credit card or something, you could definitely use that, or even like a library card, just anything stiff. A butter knife, a dull knife would also work. So again, just bringing to the corners and to the edge, and then just painting it on. And I'm being very generous with it, like folding it over and pressing it down. And then I'm going to just take my nail and push that corner over like so. And I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to that little bit there. And then do the exact same thing right here. And then I'm just I'm just pushing that in with my nail, and then I'm going to go back in and add glue right across this paper. And then because I forgot, right along the edge, and again I'm being very generous when it comes to the spine. And then I'm even going to take some up onto the spine. Like I said, it will soak in some of the fabric. The fabric will soak in some of the glue automatically, just like a little sponge. So you want to make sure that it's definitely sitting on top and not being sucked into the fabric. So you want to be very generous. And then you're going to fold this over, making sure that you concentrate on the corners. Make sure they're nice and tight, and then just push it in. Make sure you've got it right, as tight as it can go. And this will take a second because obviously the glue does take a minute to hold. Normally I actually use a faster drying glue for this process, but it does work just as well with the PVA. It just takes a minute for it to kind of grip on, which is good because it gives you a little minute to kind of make sure everything is in the proper place where you want it. Make sure you get it right into all those nooks and crannies, especially on the spine. Make sure those corners are really pushed in nice and tight. And then we can do the exact same thing on the other side. So again, you're pushing the corner, so you're pushing that excess down, and then you're pushing it in, and just kind of folding it over as you go. And again, you just want to put a little bit of glue right in there just to help hold it in place. And then again, one last time, push it down, and then push it over with your nail. Make sure that bit stays down. Push it over with your nail, and then fold it over. Sometimes you'll have more paper kind of fold over than other times. It just depends on how much you've kind of cut away initially. So don't worry about that. If one side's got more paper kind of peeking over than the other, that's fine. So again, you're now going to take your glue and bring it along the edges. And I'm going to be very generous on the spine. Should I put more glue out? That's the good thing about this glue taking a minute to dry. It gives you plenty of playing time, so you can add more if you need to. And you can kind of push things into place and take your time with it rather than rushing and having to feel like you need to get everything in place perfectly the first time around. And when you're putting the glue on, you want to make sure that you get glue on this little bit as well. So not just underneath it, but on top. And then obviously get your glue all over your page here. Make sure you've got it nice and saturated. And then again, you're just going to fold it right over and pull and push so that it's over nice and tight. Obviously don't pull or push too hard because you don't want to rip it. The good thing about wallpaper is it is relatively thick, so it does help with the pushing, and obviously when it gets wet with your glue it is going to become slightly more delicate, so just be careful with the paper you're using. I wouldn't suggest using cards because it would definitely crack and things like that in this kind of situation, but you could definitely like print something on relatively thick paper and then use that. But just be aware that when you do add your glue, obviously it is now wet, so it will get more delicate and therefore it will be easier to rip. So as you can see, this is kind of peeking up over the fabric. I did expect that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring glue over the top of it and just kind of push it back into place with my brush. And that's just going to help kind of hold everything in place. And again, you can go in with your hands if you don't mind getting covered in glue, which I don't, and just push it back into place. Adding more glue. I'm going to go over these sides as well and the corners as well, and just make sure everything is doubly secured. Obviously this will dry clear, and then you are going to cover this area with end papers, so you don't really need to worry about making a mess with the glue. The glue is there to help and make it stronger, and it's definitely a step worth taking. Like I said, all this is going to be covered in the end anyway, so you don't want to skip this for pretty reasons, because you're not going to leave it like this anyhow. And again, I'm just kind of pushing this into place. And there we go. So I've just went and grabbed a baby wipe, and I'm just going to kind of give my brush a quick clean until I can get it to the sink, and I'm just going to leave it inside that damp baby wipe for now. And then I'm going to move this whole thing to the side, because that's going to take at least a minute to dry. And then I'm just going to give this a quick clean. Like I said, this is just a tea bag plate that I got from Asda. It's just one of those little tiny plates that you place your tea bag on to dry. And I just like it for my glue. And they're not very expensive. I think they're like £2.50 or something like that. So next we can glue on to making our signatures while that's drying. So obviously, like I said, I got my clear blank paper, I got lined paper, I got tracing paper, and some doily paper, or paper doilies. So I like to have like a vintage look journal, so I like to tea dye my papers. But in true Blue Peter fashion, here's some I did earlier, as I haven't been up to actually dyeing these ones recently. So I just grabbed a bunch of tea dyed paper that I'd done before. So I've got some blank here, a lot blank, and then I've got some lined as well, and then I've got some here as well that I thought I would grab, but like for instance, I've got a lined piece there. and I've got 2 tracing papers, so I'll grab these lined ones because they're already folded, and these blank ones. And then these are actually ledger paper ones, so I'm just going to leave those to the side. Since we don't have ledger paper. And I wanted to show you this because I'm not going to do it, but this is actually not tea dyed. This is actually a piece of paper that I've like completely covered with the instant shoe polish on both sides, and it almost looks like leather. I really like the effect, and this was just plain blank paper, and I literally just sponged, not with this one obviously, I've not used this one yet, but I just sponged over the whole one side, let it dry, turned it over and did the same. And then any areas that I thought were a little bit too light, I kind of just went over them again. So far, like I said, I've got 2 tracing paper ones here as well, that I've tea dyed. So signature wise, I think I'm going to do 5 signatures. I don't want to make too many, and I think there'll be about at most 10 pages each, so I don't want more than that. So I've got 1, 2, and I'm going to put 1 here, and then obviously this isn't the only paper we have. We have book pages, and then I also got these beautiful Disney pages, which I was hoping to actually remove properly rather than tearing them out. So where's my little scissors? So obviously you can just tear these out, but what I want to do is actually go in and grab the thread and cut that rather than just tearing them out, and that means we can put a full page in. I need something to kind of grab hold of that. This is just a letter opener, so anything you can, like I said, a wee butter knife or something would work for this just as well. I just don't have one at hand, so I'm just grabbing the strings and lifting them up ever so slightly so that I can get in there with a little pair of scissors. A thread trimmer would also work here. Probably do actually a better job. The good thing about these papers is they're relatively thick as well. So let's see how I did there. Two. There we go. 3. 4. So these are the end papers here. Not really stuck on very well, to be honest. There we go. So they can go to the side. And obviously I could have used this as my cover for my journal as well. If I wanted a slightly different shape and size, that would have worked just as well. So I'm also going to tear out some of these pages, and I'm just going to tear these out as is. So I'm not going to take the trouble to unbind them. Okay, so I've up to 10 pages of that. So we've got 10 pages of this, 6 pages of this, and then we grab the tracing paper as well. And I'm only going to take out 5 pages. There is 10 pages in this, but I'm going to take out 5. So I'm just taking out 5, and that's 1 per signature. And that way we can use the other ones for embellishments later on. Just like we will use these pages for embellishments as well. And then we've also got some doilies. So I think I'm only going to take out 2 doilies. And then, like I say, you can use these for embellishments and stuff as well. So now we're going to fold everything in half so that it all can go inside the signatures. So obviously, if you don't know, a signature is a collection of papers that are folded in half that are bound into a book. So our book is going to have 5 signatures. So that is 5, like almost like this. So this would be 1 signature. So we're going to have 5 of these, and they're all going to be like a selection of different papers. So we have our lined paper, our tracing paper, our book paper, our doilies, and then we've got our, where did I put it? Coffee paper, tea dye paper. I'm just going to pop these to the side so that I actually have room to make my signatures. So I'm going to take 1 each of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 5 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to do the same with the tracing paper, because we're only going to have 1 each of that as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I'm going to do 2 each of the writing papers. There we go. And then we're going to have 2 doilies, and then I'm going to grab the rest of these. So this like leathery type one I'll pop in the middle, and then these 2 can go there. And then I've got, let's see how many lined I have so far. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'll put 1 each of the lined actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And another blank one is 5. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we need about 3 more pages of tea dye paper. So we do 1 more lined each. So 1, 2, 5. And 1 more clear, blank. 2, 5. Okay, so now we have, I think, 9 each. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. So the last thing we can do is make a wallpaper double pocket or something like that to put in each of the signatures. So what I'm going to do first is sort of build up the signatures so we can pop them to the side, and obviously I want them all to look different. And obviously these will get cut down as well, because obviously not all of these pages are going to fit inside the journal properly anyway. There we go. So we've got our 5 signatures, and now we just need to make our pockets for our signatures. And like I said, these will get cut down because obviously they're not going to fit inside our book, which I can't even show you right now because it's still drying, but they're not going to fit inside our journal properly, so they will get cut down. Well, I can show you actually. So for instance, we'll need to cut these pages down to roughly where the tea dye paper finishes, and that way they will fit inside our journal. But now we can make some pockets, I think. Let's see. Actually, no, we can't. I will need to leave that for part 3, as we are now into 45 minutes of the video, and we agreed to try and keep them 30 minutes roughly long, so as not to bore you to death. But I will be making the pockets for the signatures in the next video, and then we will be adding our end papers and binding our journal in the next video as well, hopefully. But I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like I said, don't forget to check out Lorree's part 2 down below, and make sure you've already checked out part 1 from myself and Lorree as well. And I will see you all again soon for part 3. Take care and God bless. Bye.